Hello, and welcome to Your Yes-Filled Life. I'm Brenda Winkle, and this podcast is for high-performing, empathic women who are ready to stop second-guessing themselves and start trusting what they know. Maybe you're successful in your career or business. People rely on you. You make difficult decisions every day, and yet sometimes the moment someone else's emotions, expectations, or opinions enter the conversation, your own clarity starts to disappear. If you've ever wondered, how can I be so confident everywhere else in my life but struggle to trust myself when it comes to my own needs, you are in the right place. Each week, we'll explore self-trust, nervous system regulation, emotional energy, boundaries, intuition, and the everyday moments where your life changes, not because you've become someone new, but because you learn to stay connected to yourself. I'll share client stories, my own experiences, practical tools, and honest conversations to help you stop abandoning yourself and start creating a life that's truly your own. Because I believe you already know more than you trust, and that is a yes-filled life. I'm so glad you're here. Let's begin. Hello, and welcome to Your Yes-Filled Life. I'm your host, Brenda Winkle. We're going to talk today about signs. I've been getting so many questions in my TikTok lives about signs, and my clients always have an opportunity to fill out surveys. I send out quarterly surveys for my membership, the Empowered Empath Collective, and I also send out a mid-cohort survey for Power Self-Trust for Empaths and a closing cohort survey. And one of the things that has been coming up consistently across all of my feedback forms is questions about signs. So when we're talking about signs, we're talking about like signs from the universe, signs from your angels, signs from your guides, and we're going to dive into all the things. So there's a difference between asking for guidance and repeatedly asking for confirmation because you either don't like or don't trust the answer that you received. And I'm laughing because guilty, party of one. I have been known to do this, and it's so relatable because so many times we want there to be certainty. And so we're looking for a signier sign. So we do another card pull. We book another reading. We have another conversation with our friend or our sister, another Google search, another chat GPT conversation. We listen to another podcast. We sign up for another challenge or whatever the case may be. And we're just looking for one more sign. That, my lovely friend, is not actually discernment. Sometimes that is doubt dressed up as seeking intuitive guidance. So you already know the answer, but then you ask your friend, or you pull the card and you don't really like the message. So you think that if you just wait a minute and you shift your thoughts, that maybe you can pull another card and you'll get a different response. And then you're stunned, perhaps shocked, maybe dismayed that the card has not changed. You're still pulling out the same card. Or maybe you'll notice that there are repeating numbers. You notice 11s everywhere. It's 1111. It's 11s on license plates. It's 11s on signs. It's just 1111 everywhere. And then you decide you want to ask for some guidance. So maybe you book a reading, or maybe you're asking your coach or your friends, and then you ask the psychic the same question in 3 slightly different ways over 3 different days. At some point, you're not gathering information. You are trying to find more safety and more certainty in an answer than you already are experiencing. Now, there's a lot of love for this. There's reasons that we do this. Nervous system being one of them. We're looking for that safety. And a lot of times we think that the more certain we are about something, the safer we will be. And so it's a subconscious way that we are trying to control outcomes. But when we're trying to control outcomes, we are strangling what could actually trying to be coming through for us that we can't possibly see. And I'm guilty of this too. So I'm not telling you I'm not telling you this from any place of like moral platitude. I'm in it with you. I'm maybe a little bit more advanced in practicing it. And so I can see it and witness it in myself and others, but it is still something that I catch myself doing. And sometimes, if we are having our thoughts go in a particular direction, we won't even be able to see the signs that are coming in that we're on the right path. So, if you're noticing a lot of doubt, a lot of fear, a lot of overthinking, it is absolutely an invitation to get control of the nervous system. And I'm saying that as someone who's saying, like, let's not control things. No, in this case, we really need to regulate. We really need to tend to the body first because you truly cannot see the signs that are coming through for you if you're completely stressed out. If you're in that activated stress response, especially like fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. And if your thoughts are in the doubt and fear on, am I on the right path? You're going to miss the signs that are showing you you actually are indeed on the right path. Let me tell you a little story that happened just this week for me, and you'll be getting to hear the evidence of this story on the podcast very soon. So, I was listening to a podcaster and a coach named Jessica Zweig when I was traveling full time. In fact, I discovered her on the Amy Porterfield podcast while I was driving to Portland, I think, maybe from one of the times. I don't know. It doesn't matter. Anyway, I have a vivid memory of going through the gorge, the Columbia River Valley Gorge. And by the way, it's beautiful. It's beautiful in Oregon. It's beautiful in Portland, but that gorge is spectacular. It's where Multnomah Falls is. And there's a whole waterfall region. If you haven't been, I highly recommend you check it out because Multnomah Falls is sort of the sexiest. It's the biggest, but there are some incredible waterfalls there that you can go into, literally go into the waterfall and wade in the water. And anyway, I was driving through the gorge. I had my dog Bentley with me and I put on a podcast. And I have very vivid body-based memories of the different podcast episodes I was listening to that 7-month period that I was traveling full time because I was seeing so many different places that it was easy for me to remember, oh, I was listening to this podcaster on this drive. So I was listening to Amy Porterfield, got introduced to Jessica Zweig, started listening to her podcast, and through Jessica's podcast, I came in contact with one of her guests named Elizabeth Ralph. Elizabeth hosts a podcast called The Spiritual Investor. And I was so drawn to Elizabeth on Jessica's podcast that I started to follow Elizabeth's podcast, The Spiritual Investor. And initially I had the thought that I might like to pitch to be on her podcast because there are some similarities in the ways that we approach things. And the more I listened, the more I realized I just really want to learn from Elizabeth for a while and maybe I'll pitch down the road. But wouldn't it be fun if she would come on my show? And so I had that thought and I even followed her on Instagram and invited her to be on the podcast. But when you're a larger creator, and I can tell you this just as my own social media following is growing, it's hard to keep up with all of the DMs. And so I did not take it personally when I didn't hear back. She must get hundreds of pitches a day because I know I get in the dozens a day. And didn't think anything of it, kept listening. And then a couple of weeks ago, I was listening to her podcast and I had the thought again, wouldn't it be fun if she came on my show? Wouldn't it be fun if we could meet? That would be so fun. And that was the last I thought of it. And then July was very challenging for me in 2026, where I'm recording this. And there was a lot of doubt that I had to move through. Like, am I on the right path? Am I doing the right things? A lot of doubt, a lot of noise for me. And a lot of really confronting things came to the surface around what was working, what was not working in terms of home, in terms of business, in terms of my own personal finances. And I had to do some cleanup. if I'm being really frank. And so July was challenging and I got in my head in July. And also, this coincides with the exact time that I decided I was going to double down on my dancing. So, I told you last episode that I had taken 66 dance classes in 30 days, in part because it keeps me from getting into my head as an empath. So, as I was going through all of this in July, I just kept dancing about it and feeling better and dancing about it and feeling better. Well, what do you know? This week on Sunday, I just happened to get an email. I was sitting in front of my computer when the email came in. And so I got it and I looked at it and I saw the name Elizabeth Ralph in the email. And I looked a little bit slower, read it more carefully, and I went, what? Her publicist was pitching for her to be on my show. And I burst into tears and immediately felt like such gratitude and joy and excitement, anticipation all rolled up in one, which is why I burst into tears, because sometimes that emotional energy needs some place to go. In fact, I made a reel about that this morning, and we're not booked yet. We haven't figured out the time yet, but we're in process for Elizabeth to come on the show. And I'm telling you this because this came through on July 21st with the first time that her publicist reached out to me. Remember me telling you I was in it in July? Yeah, I didn't see the email. I didn't even see the email. It was August 9th when I was sitting in front of the computer and she messaged again as a follow-up. That one I saw. My energy had shifted enough that I was able to see the sign. Things are working. Things are on the right track. So, how many signs did I need before I was finally allowing myself to trust myself? Well, honestly, kind of a lot. I had countless ladybugs surrounding me at weird places. Like, I live in a 3-story townhouse, and ladybugs were coming to land on my windows on the 3rd floor. They were landing on me when I was outside. They were crawling in the grass when I was sitting outside. One landed on Bentley one time when we were sitting outside together. Tons of ladybugs, tons of blue butterflies. All these things are ways that spirit communicates to me. Tons of butterflies of all colors, the yellow ones, the white ones, like they were literally crossing my path, touching my skin, and I was still stuck in this doubt. And this is not like ancient history. This is like July of 2026. And I think a lot of us have had really challenging times if we're doing our inner work, where we're really having to burn and alchemize the outdated parts of self, the outdated identity, the identity that says, I could never be someone who could host somebody with Elizabeth Ralph's audience size. Well, that's not even true, because I've already hosted people with really large audiences. If you scroll through past episodes, I've had some people with major impact and huge audiences in the millions on my show. So why is my identity lagging? Well, that's because that's the work that we're all collectively doing right now, is stepping into this new level of owning our own identity. So how many more signs do you think you need before you can finally trust yourself? This episode is a sign. If you're drawn to this, this is absolutely a sign. Now, let's talk about this from the perspective of the work that I do as a psychic medium. I hear people say all the time, what should I do? And I'm very careful to answer that question in a way that empowers the person asking it to make their own choices. You don't need to ask somebody what to do, because you already know. You're already being given the guidance if you'll choose to see it. But a lot of times our intuitive guidance is much more subtle, and the signs are much more subtle than the voices of our fear, the voices of people who are not supporting us, and of the worry that we're on the wrong path and the desire to have certainty. Those are all really loud. But the actual signs and the intuitive hits, they're subtle. You have a lot more intuitive access than you know, but there's so much going on. And I'm saying this collectively because I can track it, I can feel it. I've definitely been part of it. There's so much going on that you're missing the subtlety. You're missing the quiet signs. Like for me, the ladybugs. It's not like I was being hit in the head with a ladybug, but there were tons of ladybugs. So when I do work as a psychic medium, I am offering perspective, validation, possibilities, information. I'll share what's coming through, but ultimately, your agency belongs to you. And my feelings, and I feel really strongly about this, you want to be working with someone who allows you to have your agency, who also believes in your capacity to make the right decisions for yourself. Will there be information coming through to guide you? Yes, absolutely, there will. But at the end of the day, we live in a universe that allows free choice. And your free will decision and the actions that you take can impact any potential outcome that a psychic, a medium, an intuitive will have for you. Free choice always wins. So if you're asking the questions, you're getting the guidance, you're seeing the signs, and you're still stuck in doubt, that is still a free will choice. You're choosing to allow the doubt to take the front and center place in your mind. It is a choice to say, I am releasing this doubt. I can still feel it in my system. I'm talking about myself right now. I can still feel there's a level of doubt that one part of my identity has, but I also can feel that the bigger part of me, the more grounded part of me, the spiritual part of me, has complete trust in the unfolding. I have complete trust in I'm being guided to the next step. I don't have to see the whole staircase. I can just see the next step and then I'll take the next step after that. And that's really what I try to help people do as they're making their own decisions. My job is never to tell you to leave the marriage or quit the job or make this life-changing decision because I don't have to live with the consequences of those decisions. You do. And I'll do the same thing as your coach. It's not my job to tell you what to do. It's my job to present you with the options and the perspectives that maybe you haven't been able to see because we do get into doubt. I have a whole team who supports me so that I don't get stuck in doubt. I have a somatic coach, I have an energy coach, I have a business coach who's also kind of an energy coach. I'm working with this part of myself constantly. So I'm going to ask you an uncomfortable question before I dive into all the ways that your spirit team, whether that's guides or angels, are sharing you signs. And the uncomfortable question is, am I looking for information I genuinely don't have? Or am I actually looking for permission to trust what I know? And a follow-up question would be, am I willing to believe in the possibility, or am I really allowing myself to get stuck in the fear? Because the truth is, you can't move forward into possibility if you're allowing the fear to get loud. And trust me, the fear will always be there. There has never been a case of something that I have done that mattered that I didn't have a little bit of fear, including even sitting down to record this episode. There was a little bit of fear. There was a moment in which I could have talked myself out of sharing this episode with you. So when you look at people doing big, bold, brave things in the world, it's not that they don't have fear. It's that they know how to sit with the fear and choose to lean into the possibility. That's really truly the yes-filled life. Being able to sit with the fear and yet believe in the possibility that there's something more there for you. So let's talk about the signs that might be coming through. A lot of times, people that start working with me don't realize all of the intuitive capacities they have. For example, if you suddenly have song lyrics that pop into your mind at a random time, That is clairaudience. We sometimes tell ourselves that if we're truly clairaudient, it'll be like somebody speaking to us in the room. And sometimes that can happen. And for some people, that is how it is all the time. But for most of us, it's much more subtle. It's the song lyrics that we hear in our mind's eye, it's the tune of the music that we suddenly can't get out of our heads. It's the repeating phrase or the little refrain from a poem that we heard. Like, for example, in my mind right now, I'm hearing Robert Frost's The Road Less Traveled. So, what are you hearing? Same thing is true for clairvoyance. A lot of times I hear people say, I'm not intuitive or I don't really see things. And then they'll describe, well, I was kind of seeing some circles and I was seeing the color purple. That is actually clairvoyance. You're seeing, anytime you're seeing something, that could be considered clairvoyance. We think sometimes in our heads, and because of the things that we've seen in movies, that if you're truly clairvoyant, you'll see a full spectral apparition standing in your room speaking to you. Does that happen for some people? Yes, it does. But for the vast majority of people, it's in your mind's eye. It's not something you're seeing with your eyeballs all the time. Can you see things with your eyeballs some of the time? Yes, absolutely. Do I? Sometimes, yes. Is it more normal for me to see it in my mind's eye? Also, well, it's about 50-50. Sometimes I'll see it with my physical eye, and sometimes I'll see it with my mind's eye. If we look at all of the intuitive gifts, claircognizance, clairsentience, clairolfactance, that's where you smell, clairaudience, I think is what it's called, where you taste, all of those things are subtle. So, like when you're eating food, you're eating out, and you think to yourself, oh my goodness, I can taste a little fennel, I can taste a little saffron, and you have these really cued in realizations of what you're eating. That is part of the clairs. You're tasting things intuitively in a much stronger way than other people. Same thing for smell. Let's say you're able to smell the notes of blackberry and chocolate and tobacco in a really strong way from a beautiful glass of wine. Not everybody can do that. And a lot of times we're not giving ourselves credit for these intuitive gifts. Claircognizance is one that is really slippery for people because all of a sudden you just know, like you know something. And yet you're thinking to yourself, how could I possibly know that? I remember the first time I had something come in as claircognizance that I was like, oh my gosh, I know this to be true. I don't know why, but I know this to be true. And it was when we were together at a family reunion and I snapped a picture and I was looking at the camera and I was looking like at the actual image. It was my dad and my uncles and my aunt and my grandma. No, wait, that was one too. That was, I had two. So there was one before that. So the one with my grandma, I guess, was my first claircognizance where I knew that was the last picture of my dad, his four siblings, and my grandmother. I knew it. In fact, I said, I think this is the last time we'll see these people all in a group. And then it happened again when my grandmother had passed, and there was a picture of my dad with his three brothers and sister. And I knew at that picture, I was like, oh, that's the last time they'll have a picture taken together. And in my family, every event is filled with pictures. So I knew that that meant that something was changing in the family dynamic that would prevent them from being in another picture together. And it was so subtle, but yet so clear. And so my guess is you're probably having moments like this too. And here's the thing that really is important to recognize. The more work you do on harnessing your empath abilities, the more your other intuitive abilities come online. So if you've been a little bit intuitive all along, and then you start working with me inside Power, Self Trust for Empaths, inside the Empowered Empath Collective, which is my membership, we meet weekly and it's a really affordable option. Or whether you're working with me in private coaching, one thing that I have seen across the board is an increase in intuitive abilities. Not everybody came in looking for that on the paperwork, but as it turns out, everyone was drawn to me because of my intuitive abilities. So, as an empath, external input from the outside world can get really loud. I'm going to use that word even though it's not necessarily going to be loud in your ears, although it sure could be. It could be the facial expressions that you notice or the feelings that you notice, whether it's fear or disappointment or excitement or opinions or energy. And suddenly, the quiet thing, the subtle thing that you knew before whatever input came in gets buried underneath all of that. And then it feels like you don't have any signs because everything above that is so much louder and just more prevalent, I think. It's not big enough or loud enough, which is why we have to slow down as empaths. That's why we need space between different kinds of energetic things, whether it's spacing out between appointments or taking a little time between work and home or taking time between two different social events. We have to create that space for ourselves as empaths. It's not negotiable because we'll miss out on all the subtle cues if we don't have some time to feel and process and figure out, oh, what did I just notice there? And when we think about signs from loved ones often will do something that you've talked about. So, like, for example, I told my dad, I was like, I really want to see signs from you. What signs do you think I'll see? Do you think I'll see dragonflies? And he was like, yeah, I think dragonflies would be good. And I tell you what, the dragonflies that I have seen since he died, you can't believe them. And sometimes they'll like fly with me. So they'll like come on beside me and they'll just be flying with me as I'm hiking on a trail. It's very cool. I also told my dad, and dad, if you're listening, I love money and it'd be fun if you drop even more money, which is another thing that our departed loved ones love to do. They love to drop coins, especially. And one little tip, you can look at the year on the coin and get a lot of information. It'll remind you of something that happened either in your life or with that person. And a lot of our loved ones love to send messages with the winged creatures, things like dragonflies, butterflies, birds, all kinds of birds. Those are great signs, but it really could be any sign. Now, one of the things people get a little twisted is if, let's say, you see a doe, like the deer kind of doe, that is not your departed loved one, but your departed loved one may have worked with that animal to come send a message. So it's not like they're inhabiting the body of that animal, they're just working with, they're co creating with. And then when it comes to angels, angels are going to show us signs too. I love looking at numbers and I notice things like in time. For example, today I saw 1111, I saw 111. I've been seeing ones and fours and threes and twos and fives repeating. I've even seen 66 in probably four different ways in the last 24 hours. And if you just go Google search angel number, whatever number, you're going to get meanings. They don't always have to be repeating numbers either. So for a while, I was looking at 717 and then 714. And those were coming in every day. That was like, I don't know, 8 or 9 years ago. Every day I would see 714, 717. So I looked it up finally and got the message. So invitation to do that. And there's some great books out there on angel numbers. I like Kyle Gray's book, and there's different interpretations for the angel numbers too. You'll probably notice if you do a Google search, but you'll have some idea of what it actually means. So I could talk all day about the specific signs. Literally, I could. Remember, or maybe you don't know, I started a second podcast called The Table of Woo. And what I might do is bring in one of those episodes here if you're interested, but let me know. I'm not going to do it unless I hear from you. I'm no longer creating new content for that podcast just because I realized it's just too much. I don't have it in me to run two, at least not right now. So if you're curious about that, let me know and I'll bring in some of those episodes and tailor them for this podcast. And one of the things that I really want you to understand is my goal for you, and it feels to me as an interpreter of spirit, it feels to me like we're being invited to trust ourselves and trust our own guidance. At the end of the day, this is all about creating self agency. And for my own purposes and for the people that I work with and the people that I hire to support me, I really believe that self agency is a prime value, meaning it is one of the most important things. I want to teach you self agency and I want to have self agency because none of us want to be dependent on somebody. So, like, I've been working on one of the apps, um, one of the psychic medium apps, like phone stuff, just trying to get a better idea of what people out in the wild are asking. And there are some people who get a little bit dependent. I don't want that for you. I want you to have some self trust and agency. And then, of course, we can't see our own nose for our face. None of us can. And so, does it make sense once in a while to reach out for some support? 100%. And I do it often, and I hope you do too. All right. I'm so excited because we have a date coming up for the Judith Orloff conversation. It'll be coming out at the end of August. Please make sure you're subscribed to the podcast wherever you're listening because you are not going to want to miss that conversation. We have Elizabeth Ralph coming on the podcast soon. I'll keep you updated on that status. And I'm just so grateful for you for being here, for listening. Let me know what you want to hear more about. I am an open ear for you. I really do want to create these episodes for you. So let me know what you want to hear about. And if you could please leave the podcast a rating, review, or comment wherever you're listening, it is incredibly helpful for the podcast because it helps us get into the ears of new listeners. Thanks for being here. Bye for now.